My hands were black with engine grease when the phone buzzed. I should have ignored it, should have kept working on Mrs. Patterson's busted transmission like any other Tuesday afternoon. But something about that particular buzz made me wipe my hands on my coveralls and check the screen. Unknown number. The message was short. Check your wife's Instagram story, trust me. I stared at those 8 words, my gut already twisting into knots. Jessica didn't post much on social media anymore. Said it was unprofessional for an architect of her standing, but curiosity killed the cat, and apparently, it was about to murder what was left of my marriage. I opened Instagram with greasy thumbs. There it was, Jessica's story, posted 20 minutes ago. A video from Romano's, the upscale bar downtown where she supposedly had her monthly girls' night. The camera was shaky, wine-drunk, but the audio was crystal clear. Ladies, Jessica's voice rang out, that fake cheerful tone she used when she wanted attention. I have an announcement. The camera panned across familiar faces, her work friends, college buddies, the usual suspects. Then it swung back to Jessica, her blonde hair perfectly styled, her smile sharp as broken glass. I'm finally doing it. I'm leaving Ben. Cheers erupted from the group. Someone shouted, "About time!" Another voice chimed in with, "You deserve so much better." But Jessica wasn't done. She never was when she had an audience. 20 years of marriage, and what do I have to show for it? A husband who smells like motor oil and thinks Olive Garden is fine dining. Well, no more settling for dead weight. The video cut off there, but the damage was done. 20 years reduced to dead weight. Our entire life together dismissed with the casual cruelty of someone who'd already mentally checked out. I set the phone down on my workbench and stared at the half-assembled transmission. My hands were shaking. Not from anger. Not yet. From something deeper. The kind of shock that comes when you realize the person sleeping next to you for 2 decades has been a stranger all along. The garage door rumbled open behind me. I didn't turn around. I knew that sound, Jessica's BMW, the one she'd insisted we lease even though my pickup truck ran just fine. "Ben, are you in here?" Her voice was different now. Nervous. She must have seen that I'd viewed her story. I finally turned around. Jessica stood in the doorway, still wearing her work clothes, a tailored blazer and pencil skirt that probably cost more than most people's rent. She looked every inch the successful architect, right down to the guilt written across her face. "We need to talk," she said. I wiped my hands again, slower this time. "Do we? Seems like you already said everything that needed saying." Her face flushed. "You saw the video." "Hard to miss. You made sure of that." I leaned against the workbench, crossing my arms. "Dead weight, huh? That's what 20 years gets me?" "Ben, you don't understand." "Oh, I understand perfectly." My voice was calm, which seemed to unnerve her more than shouting would have. "You've been planning this for a while. The late nights, the separate bank account you thought I didn't know about, the way you flinch when I touch you. I just didn't realize you were already celebrating." Jessica's composure cracked. "I wasn't celebrating. I needed support from my friends." "Support?" I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Is that what you call humiliating your husband in front of half the town?" "It wasn't supposed to go online. Sarah posted it without thinking. Sarah posted it because you wanted her to." I pushed off from the workbench and took a step toward her. She actually backed up. "You wanted everyone to know. You wanted to make sure I'd be too embarrassed to fight the divorce." The truth hung between us like a live wire. Jessica's mouth opened and closed, but no words came out. "Here's what's going to happen," I continued, my voice still eerily calm. "You're going to go back to the house, pack whatever you need for tonight and find somewhere else to sleep. Tomorrow, we'll talk lawyers." "Ben, please." 20 years, Jessica. 20 years I've been breaking my back to give you the life you wanted. The house, the car, the fancy dinners you complained weren't fancy enough. And this is how you repay me? By turning our marriage into entertainment for your drunk friends? She was crying now, mascara running down her cheeks. But I felt nothing. The shock was wearing off, replaced by something colder and infinitely more dangerous. I never meant for it to happen this way, she whispered. No, you meant for it to happen quietly. You meant to sneak around behind my back until you had everything lined up perfectly. New apartment, new life, new man, because there is someone else, isn't there? Her silence was answer enough. I turned back to the transmission, dismissing her like she'd dismissed me. Get out of my garage, Jessica. And next time you want to announce something about our marriage, maybe run it by me first. I heard her heels clicking on the concrete, then the sound of her car starting. But she didn't leave right away. She sat there for a long minute, engine running, probably trying to figure out how to salvage this mess. Too late for that. My phone buzzed again. Another unknown number, but this time I recognized the area code. Local. Someone else in town had seen the video, and word was already spreading. The message was short. Sorry, man. If you need anything, call me. Mike from the diner. Then another. Saw Jess's post. What a bitch. You deserve better. Carla. And another. Dude, everyone's talking about this. You okay? Tommy. Within an hour, my phone was buzzing constantly. Half the town had seen Jessica's little announcement, and the other half was hearing about it secondhand. Some messages were supportive, others were just nosy. A few were downright cruel, people who'd always resented my success with the garage and were happy to see me taken down a peg. But one message stood out from the rest. It came from a number I didn't recognize, but the tone was different. Calculating. Ben, this is Marina West, Jessica's friend from college. I think we should talk. There are things about your wife you don't know. Meet me at the Rusty Anchor tomorrow at 8 p.m. if you want answers. Marina West. I remembered her vaguely. A sharp-faced woman who'd visited a few times over the years. Jessica always seemed nervous around her, like she was trying to impress someone who couldn't be impressed. I'd never liked her, but I couldn't put my finger on why. Now, apparently, I was about to find out. I looked around my garage, my sanctuary, the place where I'd built my reputation one satisfied customer at a time. Tomorrow, everything would be different. Tomorrow, I'd start the process of dismantling 20 years of marriage. But tonight, I had work to do. And for the first time in months, I had perfect clarity about what needed to be done. The game was just beginning. The Rusty Anchor hadn't seen better days since the Carter administration. Peeling paint, neon beer signs that flickered more than they glowed, and the kind of clientele that minded their own business, which made it perfect for the conversation I was about to have. Marina West was already there when I arrived, nursing what looked like her second whiskey sour. She'd aged since I'd last seen her, but not gracefully. Her auburn hair was too perfect, her makeup too heavy for a woman pushing 45. She looked like someone trying very hard to hold on to something that was already gone. Ben. She stood up as I approached, extending a manicured hand. Thank you for coming. I shook her hand briefly and slid into the booth across from her. You said you had information about Jessica. I'm listening. Marina smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Straight to business. I always liked that about you. Cut the crap, Marina. What do you want? She leaned back, studying me over her glass. What I want is irrelevant. What you need is the truth about your wife. The waitress appeared, a tired-looking woman in her 50s who'd probably been working here since the place opened. I ordered a beer and waited for Marina to continue. Jessica didn't just decide to leave you, Ben. This has been in the works for over a year. I figured that much out on my own. Did you figure out who's been helping her plan it? I took a sip of my beer, keeping my expression neutral. You? Marina laughed, a sound like breaking glass. Me? Oh, Ben, you really don't understand women at all, do you? Enlighten me. She leaned forward, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. Your wife has been having an affair with Ethan Boyd for 8 months. The name hit me like a punch to the gut. Ethan Boyd, the flashy real estate agent with the perfect teeth and the expensive suits. I'd met him at a few town events, always glad-handing and name-dropping. Jessica had mentioned him in passing, something about him helping her look at commercial properties for her firm. You're lying. Am I? Marina pulled out her phone, swiped through a few screens, then turned it toward me. This was taken 3 weeks ago at the Marriott downtown. The photo was grainy, clearly taken from a distance, but there was no mistaking the 2 figures in the hotel lobby. Jessica, wearing a dress I'd never seen before, laughing at something Ethan was whispering in her ear. His hand was on the small of her back, intimate and possessive. I stared at the image until Marina pulled the phone away. How long have you known? I suspected for months. Confirmed it 6 weeks ago when I hired a private investigator. Why? The question came out harsher than I intended. Why would you investigate your friend's marriage? Marina's smile turned predatory. Because Jessica isn't my friend, Ben. She never was. We've been enemies since college, and she's been too stupid to realize it. Now we were getting to the truth. I set down my beer and gave her my full attention. 23 years ago, your wife cost me the internship that would have launched my career. She spread rumors about me sleeping with professors, sabotaged my portfolio presentation, and then swooped in to take the position herself. That was over 20 years ago. Some things you don't forget. Marina's voice was ice cold now, all pretense of friendliness gone. I've been waiting for the right moment to return the favor. And you think destroying her marriage is going to settle some college grudge? I think destroying her marriage is just the beginning. Marina pulled a manila envelope from her purse and slid it across the table. Everything you need to know about Jessica and Ethan's affair is in there. Hotel receipts, text messages, photos, enough to bury her in divorce court. I stared at the envelope but didn't touch it. What's the catch? No catch. Consider it a gift. Bullshit. What do you want in return? Marina finished her drink and stood up. I want you to use it, Ben. I want you to make her pay for what she did to both of us. She dropped a 20 on the table and walked away, leaving me alone with the envelope and a dozen new questions. I sat there for 10 minutes, staring at the manila folder like it might explode. Finally, I opened it. The contents were worse than I'd imagined. Photos of Jessica and Ethan at restaurants, hotels, even at what looked like a weekend getaway cabin. Text messages that made my stomach turn, not just because of the explicit content, but because of how callously they discussed me. Ben's working late again. Perfect timing for us. He has no idea. Sometimes I think he's actually stupid. Can't wait to be done with this charade. Just a few more months. But the real kicker was at the bottom of the stack. Copies of bank statements showing that Jessica had been funneling money from our joint accounts into a separate account for months. Nearly $30,000, money I'd earned with my hands while she was playing house with her boyfriend. I closed the envelope and walked out of the bar, my mind racing. Marina had handed me enough ammunition to destroy Jessica in court, but her motives were poison. She didn't care about justice or helping me. She wanted revenge for some ancient slight, and she was using me to get it. The smart thing would be to walk away, take the evidence to a lawyer, file for divorce, and try to salvage what I could from the wreckage of my marriage. But I wasn't feeling particularly smart. I was feeling angry. My phone rang as I reached my truck. Jessica's number. Ben, where are you? I've been trying to reach you all evening. I was out. What do you want? I want to talk. Really talk this time. I think we can work through this if we just... Where are you calling from? Silence. Then, what do you mean? Simple question, Jessica. Where are you right now? I'm at Sarah's house. We're having dinner and... I hung up and immediately called Sarah's number. She answered on the second ring. Ben, is everything okay? Is Jessica there? Jessica? No, I haven't seen her since yesterday. Why? I hung up without answering and sat in my truck, staring at my phone. Jessica was lying, which meant she was probably with Ethan right now, spinning some story about her crazy husband while they planned their next move. 20 years of marriage, and it had come to this. Lies piled on top of lies, betrayal dressed up as girls' nights and business meetings. My phone buzzed with a text from Jessica. "Ben, please call me back. We need to talk about our future." I typed back. "Our future ended when you decided to broadcast our business to the whole town. Don't call me again unless it's about lawyers." Her response came immediately. "You're being unreasonable. I made a mistake, but that doesn't mean we can't fix this." I stared at the message for a long moment, then typed, "I know about Ethan." This time, there was no immediate response. I waited 5 minutes, then 10. Finally, my phone rang. "Ben, I can explain." "No need. I've seen the photos, read the texts, found the bank statements. You've been busy." She was crying now, ugly sobs that might have moved me yesterday. "It wasn't supposed to happen like this. I never meant to hurt you." "But you did hurt me, Jessica. You humiliated me in front of the entire town, stole money from our joint accounts, and carried on an affair for 8 months. The only thing you're sorry about is getting caught." "That's not true." "It's completely true. And now you're going to learn what it feels like to lose everything." I hung up and turned off my phone. Tomorrow, I'd start making calls. To lawyers, to the bank, to everyone who needed to know that Jessica Harris was no longer authorized to speak for me or access our shared assets. But tonight, I had other plans. Ethan Boyd lived in a McMansion on the hill overlooking the lake, the kind of ostentatious display that screamed new money and insecurity. His silver Mercedes was in the driveway, along with a car I recognized, Jessica's BMW. I parked across the street and sat in the darkness, watching the house. Every light was on, and I could see movement in the living room. They were probably inside right now, discussing how to handle the situation, how to manage me. I reached into my glove compartment and pulled out a baseball bat, the same Louisville Slugger I'd used in high school, before I'd discovered that my talents lay in fixing things rather than breaking them. Tonight, I was going to break something. I didn't use the bat that night. Instead, I sat in my truck for 2 hours, watching Jessica's car in Ethan's driveway, letting the reality sink in. 20 years of marriage, and here she was, playing house with another man while I sat outside like some lovesick teenager. The smart play was to document everything, take photos, build a case. But I wasn't feeling smart. I was feeling methodical. I drove home to our empty house, my house now, I supposed, and spent the night planning. By dawn, I had a strategy that would have made Sun Tzu proud. The first call I made was to our bank. "First National, this is Rebecca. How can I help you?" "This is Ben Harris. I need to freeze all joint accounts immediately." "I'm sorry, Mr. Harris, but both account holders would need to—" "My wife has been making unauthorized withdrawals. I have documentation of financial infidelity, and I'm filing for divorce today. I need those accounts frozen now." 20 minutes and 3 supervisors later, Jessica's access to our money was cut off. The checking account, the savings account, the credit cards, all of it locked down tighter than Fort Knox. The second call was to my lawyer, Dave Morrison. We'd gone to high school together, and he'd handled the legal work when I bought the garage. "Ben, I heard about what happened. I'm sorry, man." "Don't be sorry, Dave. Get mad. I want to file for divorce today, and I want to take her for everything she's worth." "What kind of evidence do we have?" I told him about the photos, the bank records, the documented affair. Dave whistled low. "This is good, Ben. Really good. With this kind of evidence, we can probably get you the house, the business, and alimony." "I don't want alimony. I want justice." In divorce court, they're the same thing. The third call was the most satisfying. I dialed Jessica's office number and asked for her boss, Richard Steinberg. "Mr. Steinberg, this is Ben Harris, Jessica's husband. I wanted to give you a heads up about something that might affect her work performance. Oh? Is everything all right? Jessica and I are getting divorced. She's been having an affair with Ethan Boyd, the real estate agent. I thought you should know in case it impacts any business relationships. The silence stretched for so long, I thought he'd hung up. Finally, I see. Thank you for the information, Mr. Harris. Just thought you should hear it from me before it becomes common knowledge. By 10 a.m., I'd systematically dismantled the infrastructure of Jessica's comfortable life. No access to money, divorce papers filed, and her professional reputation hanging by a thread. My phone had been buzzing constantly. Jessica calling from different numbers trying to reach me. I let them all go to voicemail. The first message, Ben, please, you have to listen to me. I can explain everything. The fifth message, you froze our accounts? How am I supposed to pay for anything? The 10th message, you vindictive bastard. You can't just cut me off without warning. There it was, the real Jessica, the one who'd been hiding behind 20 years of fake smiles and false apologies. I saved that message. My lawyer would find it interesting. At noon, I drove to the diner where half the town ate lunch. Word travels fast in a small community, and I wanted to control the narrative. Mike Torino, who owned the place, greeted me with a sympathetic pat on the shoulder. Heard about what happened, Ben. Sorry, man. Jessica always seemed like such a nice girl. Seemed like, I agreed, taking a seat at the counter. Turns out there was a lot I didn't know about my wife. Within minutes, I was surrounded by curious neighbors and regular customers. I didn't volunteer information, but I didn't hide from their questions either. Is it true she's been cheating? Asked Mrs. Patterson, whose transmission I'd fixed just last week. For 8 months, apparently, with Ethan Boyd. Gasps and murmurs rippled through the crowd. Ethan wasn't well liked in town, too flashy, too arrogant, too quick to look down on the blue-collar folks who actually kept the community running. I heard she cleaned out your bank accounts, said Tommy Martinez, a mechanic who worked at the Jiffy Lube. Tried to. Good thing I caught it in time. More murmurs, these ones angry. In a town where most people lived paycheck to paycheck, the idea of a cheating spouse stealing money hit close to home. By the time I left the diner, the story had taken on a life of its own. Jessica wasn't just an unfaithful wife. She was a gold-digging manipulator who'd tried to steal from her hard-working husband. Ethan wasn't just her lover. He was a predator who targeted a married woman for her money. The truth was more complicated, but the truth wasn't what mattered now. What mattered was perception, and the perception was that Jessica Harris was the villain in this story. My phone rang as I walked back to my truck. Unknown number again, but I recognized the voice immediately. Ben, this is Ethan Boyd. I think we need to talk. Do we? This situation has gotten out of hand. Jessica is hysterical. She can't access any money, and now her boss is asking questions about our business relationship. Sounds like a personal problem. Look, I know you're angry, but taking it out on Jessica isn't going to solve anything. She made a mistake, but she doesn't deserve to be destroyed over it. I laughed. A mistake? Is that what you call an 8-month affair? It wasn't supposed to happen. We tried to fight it, but sometimes these things save the romance novel bullshit for someone who cares, Ethan. You want to be with my wife? Congratulations, you can support her too. Be reasonable, Ben. We're all adults here. You're right, we are adults, which means we're all responsible for our choices. Jessica chose to cheat. You chose to help her. I'm choosing to make sure everyone knows exactly what kind of people you are. I hung up and immediately called Dave Morrison. Dave, I need you to do something for me. File a motion to freeze all marital assets. I don't want Jessica or her boyfriend getting their hands on anything else. Already on it. I also took the liberty of running a credit check on your wife. Ben, she's been busy. 3 new credit cards in the last 6 months, all maxed out. The hits just kept coming. How much? $47,000 in credit card debt. All of it spent at high-end restaurants, hotels, and clothing stores. Looks like she's been financing her affair with borrowed money. Can we make her responsible for that debt in the divorce? Given the circumstances? Absolutely. I hung up, feeling lighter than I had in months. Jessica had been planning to leave me holding the bag for her affair-related expenses, but now she'd be stuck with every penny of debt she'd racked up while cheating on me. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "This is Jessica. Ethan let me borrow his phone. Please, Ben, we need to talk. I'm staying at the Motel 6 on Route 9. I have nowhere else to go." I stared at the message for a long moment, then typed back, "You should have thought of that before you decided to humiliate me on social media." Her response was immediate. "I'm sorry. I was drunk and stupid and I didn't mean for it to go viral. Please, I'll do anything to fix this." Anything? Yes, anything. I thought about it for exactly 10 seconds, then typed, "Sign the divorce papers without contest. Give me the house, the business, and take responsibility for all the debt you racked up during your affair. Do that, and I'll consider not pursuing criminal charges for the money you stole from our joint accounts." This time, her response took longer. "Criminal charges? Ben, you can't be serious." "Theft is theft, Jessica. You took $30,000 from our joint accounts without my knowledge or consent. That's a felony in this state." "I'm your wife. It was my money, too." "Was. Past tense. You stopped being my wife the moment you decided to broadcast our private business to the world. Now you're just someone who stole from me." My phone rang immediately. Jessica's voice was shrill with panic. "Ben, please, you have to understand." "I understand perfectly. You thought you could have your cake and eat it too. Affair, money, public sympathy, and a clean divorce where you got half of everything I'd worked for. But you got greedy, and now you're going to pay for it. I never wanted it to happen like this. But it did happen like this, because of choices you made, actions you took, words you said." She was sobbing now. "What do you want from me? What will it take to make this stop?" "I want you to lose everything, Jessica. Just like you wanted me to lose everything. I want you to know what it feels like to be humiliated, betrayed, and abandoned. I want you to understand that actions have consequences. Ben, please." "You have 24 hours to sign the divorce papers. After that, I start making phone calls to everyone you've ever worked with, every friend you've ever had, every relative who might still think you're a good person. I'll make sure they all know exactly what kind of woman you really are." I hung up and turned off my phone. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new battles to fight. But tonight, for the first time in months, I was going to sleep well. The game was far from over, but I was finally winning. 3 days later, I discovered that my social circle had evaporated faster than morning dew. The guys I'd considered friends for years, men I'd helped move, lent money to, shared beers with after long days, suddenly had excuses for why they couldn't meet up. The first sign came when I called Jake Brennan, my poker buddy for the past decade. We had a standing game every Thursday night, and I needed the normalcy. "Hey, Ben." Jake's voice was strained. "Look, about tonight. I think maybe you should skip this week." "Why?" "Come on, man, you know why. This thing with Jessica and Ethan, it's got people talking. Let them talk. It's not that simple. Some of the guys think you're being too harsh, freezing her out, going after her job. It's making people uncomfortable." I felt something cold settle in my chest. "Uncomfortable?" "Look, we all get that you're hurt, but maybe you should dial it back a little. Try to work things out like adults." "Adults," I repeated. Like Jessica was being adult when she announced our divorce to a bar full of people? Like Ethan was being adult when he was screwing my wife for 8 months? That's not... Look, Ben, I'm just saying... I know exactly what you're saying, Jake. Thanks for clearing things up. I hung up and immediately called Tom Rodriguez, another longtime friend. Same story, different words. "Ben, I think you need to take a step back. This vendetta thing isn't healthy." "Vendetta?" "That's what people are calling it. You went nuclear on Jessica. And now everyone's picking sides. And which side are you on, Tom? Silence. Then, I'm not on any side. I just think maybe you should consider counseling or something. Try to save your marriage. My marriage ended when my wife decided to cheat on me and then humiliate me publicly. But thanks for the advice. One by one, I called every man I'd considered a friend. The responses varied, but the message was consistent. I was the problem. I was being too vindictive, too harsh, too unforgiving. Jessica had made a mistake, but I was making it worse by refusing to be the bigger man. By Friday afternoon, I understood the truth. These men weren't my friends. They were Jessica's friends who'd tolerated me. She'd been working on them for months, probably years, painting me as the unreasonable husband who didn't appreciate his successful wife. The final betrayal came from Danny Walsh, my best man, and the person I'd trusted most in the world. Ben, we need to talk. Danny showed up at my garage that evening, looking like he'd rather be anywhere else. We'd known each other since elementary school, been through divorces, deaths, and every major life event together. Let me guess, I said, not looking up from the engine I was working on. You think I'm being too hard on Jessica? I think you're destroying your life out of spite. Now I looked up. Danny's face was set in the expression he used when he thought he was delivering tough love. My life was already destroyed, Danny. I'm just making sure Jessica doesn't profit from the destruction. Listen to yourself, Ben. You sound like a bitter old man. I sound like a man who's tired of being everyone's doormat. Danny pulled up a stool and sat down, clearly settling in for a long conversation. Jessica came to see me yesterday. Did she now? She's a mess, Ben. Crying, scared, sleeping in a motel room because you froze her out of everything. She asked me to talk to you to see if there's any way to fix this. I set down my wrench and gave Danny my full attention. And what did you tell her? I told her I'd try. Because that's what friends do. They help each other find solutions instead of burning everything down. Solutions. I nodded slowly. What kind of solutions did you have in mind? Marriage counseling. A trial separation instead of divorce. Maybe some kind of financial arrangement so she's not living in a motel while you work things out. You want me to pay for my cheating wife's apartment so she can be more comfortable while she decides whether she wants to come back to me or stay with her boyfriend. I want you to act like the man I've known for 30 years instead of this vindictive stranger. That's when I understood. Danny wasn't here as my friend. He was here as Jessica's advocate. She'd gotten to him, probably with tears and sob stories about her cruel husband who'd cut her off without warning. Tell me something, Danny. How long have you known about the affair? His face went pale. What do you mean? Simple question. When did you find out that Jessica was cheating on me? Ben, because I'm starting to think everyone knew except me. All those times you guys told me I was lucky to have such a beautiful wife. All those jokes about her being out of my league. You all knew she was screwing around, didn't you? It wasn't like that. How long, Danny? He looked down at his hands. I heard rumors about 3 months ago, but I didn't know for sure, and it wasn't my place to... 3 months. I felt something break inside my chest, something that had been holding together what was left of my faith in people. You knew for 3 months that my wife was cheating on me, and you said nothing. I didn't want to hurt you with gossip. You didn't want to get involved. There's a difference. Danny stood up, his face flushing with anger. You know what, Ben? Maybe Jessica was right about you. Maybe you are impossible to live with. Maybe she cheated because she was lonely and neglected. Get out. Maybe if you'd paid half as much attention to your wife as you do to these broken-down cars. Get out! Danny left, slamming the garage door behind him. I stood alone in the sudden silence, surrounded by the tools and machines that had never lied to me, never betrayed me, never pretended to be something they weren't. My phone buzzed. A text from Jessica. Danny told me what happened. Ben, please. I never wanted to come between you and your friends. I typed back, "You didn't come between us. You just showed me who they really were. I'm sorry. For everything. I know I hurt you, but I never wanted this. You wanted a new life without me in it. Congratulations. You got it. That's not true. I made mistakes, but I still love you." I stared at those words for a long time. A week ago, they might have meant something. Now they just looked like more manipulation. If you loved me, you wouldn't have cheated. If you loved me, you wouldn't have humiliated me. If you loved me, you wouldn't have stolen from me. You loved the security I provided, not me. Please don't do this. We can fix this if we try. There's nothing left to fix, Jessica. You broke it, and I'm done trying to put the pieces back together. I turned off my phone and walked out of the garage. The night air was cold and clean, carrying the scent of autumn leaves and wood smoke from someone's fireplace. Normal smells from a normal world where normal people lived normal lives. I wasn't normal anymore. I was something else. Something harder and colder and infinitely more dangerous than the man who'd been working on Mrs. Patterson's transmission a week ago. That man had believed in friendship and loyalty and the fundamental goodness of people. That man was gone, killed by betrayal, and replaced by someone who understood that the world was full of predators and prey. I'd been prey for 20 years. Time to become something else. 2 weeks later, I got the call I'd been expecting. "Ben, this is Dave. Jessica signed the papers." I was under the hood of a '98 Camaro, but I stopped working and gave the phone my full attention. All of them? Every single page. No contest divorce. She takes responsibility for all debt incurred during the affair. You keep the house and the business. She even agreed to the adultery clause that prevents her from claiming alimony. What changed her mind? Near as I can tell, reality set in. She's been living in that motel for 2 weeks. Ethan stopped returning her calls, and her boss put her on administrative leave pending an ethics review. I felt a grim satisfaction settle in my chest. "When do we finalize?" "Judge can see us Friday morning." "Ben, I have to ask. Are you sure about the criminal charges? The DA says he'll prosecute if you want to press forward." I'd been thinking about that for days. $30,000 was serious money, enough to send Jessica to prison for 2 to 5 years. Part of me wanted to see her in handcuffs, wanted her to understand that actions had consequences. But prison would make her a victim. Better to let her live with the choices she'd made. "Drop the charges. She's got enough problems." "You sure? Because once I'm sure." That afternoon I was closing up the garage when a familiar car pulled into the lot. Not Jessica's BMW. She'd been forced to return that when the lease company found out about the frozen accounts. This was a beat-up Honda Civic that had seen better decades. Jessica climbed out slowly, like an old woman. 2 weeks of stress had aged her years. Her perfect hair was limp and unwashed, her designer clothes replaced by jeans and a sweatshirt that had probably come from Walmart. She looked like what she was, a woman who'd lost everything. "Ben, please, just 5 minutes." I should have walked away, should have gotten in my truck and driven home to the house that was now legally mine. Instead, I found myself curious about what she thought she could say that would matter. 5 minutes. She followed me into the garage office, a cramped space filled with invoices and auto parts catalogs. She sat in the chair across from my desk, the same chair where dozens of customers had sat over the years, discussing repair estimates and payment plans. I signed the papers. I heard. "I want you to know that I'm sorry, really sorry. Not just for getting caught, but for all of it. The affair, the money, the way I treated you." I leaned back in my chair and studied her face. She looked sincere, but Jessica had always been good at looking sincere when she wanted something. "What do you want, Jessica?" "I want to explain. I want you to understand why it happened." "I know why it happened. You were bored with your blue-collar husband and excited by your white-collar boyfriend." She flinched. "It wasn't that simple." It never is, according to the person who did the cheating. I felt invisible, Ben. We barely talked anymore, barely touched. You came home every night covered in grease, ate dinner in front of the TV, and fell asleep on the couch. I felt like I was living with a roommate, not a husband. So you decided to find someone who made you feel visible. Ethan made me feel beautiful again, desirable, like I was worth pursuing. I nodded slowly. And the money? Did stealing $30,000 make you feel beautiful too? Her face crumpled. I was going to pay it back. I just needed time to figure things out, to decide what I wanted. You decided what you wanted 8 months ago when you started screwing around. Everything after that was just logistics. We sat in silence for a moment. Outside, I could hear traffic passing on Main Street, normal people going about their normal lives, unaware of the small tragedy playing out in a cluttered garage office. What happens now? Jessica asked finally. Now you live with the consequences of your choices, just like I'm living with the consequences of mine. I lost my job, Ben. Richard fired me yesterday. Said the ethics investigation found that I'd been using company resources to facilitate personal relationships. Meaning, you were using the office to coordinate your affair. I have no money, no job, no friends. Ethan won't even take my calls. I'm staying in a women's shelter because I can't afford the motel anymore. I felt something that might have been pity, but it passed quickly. You made your choices, Jessica. You chose Ethan over me, chose excitement over stability, chose to humiliate me rather than talk to me. This is where those choices led. I know I deserve this. But Ben, we had 20 years together. 20 years of good times and shared history. Doesn't that count for anything? It counted for everything. Right up until you decided it counted for nothing. She started crying then. Not the manipulative tears she'd used during our marriage when she wanted something, but the raw, ugly sobs of someone who'd lost everything and was just beginning to understand what that meant. I don't know what to do, she whispered. I don't know how to start over. The same way everyone else does. You find a job, any job. You find a place to live, any place. You figure out how to pay your bills and feed yourself and get through each day. You learn to live with the person you've become. I can't do this alone. You should have thought of that before you chose to be alone. She looked up at me with red-rimmed eyes. Is there any chance, any possibility that someday you might forgive me? I considered the question seriously. Could I forgive her? Maybe, eventually. People forgave worse betrayals than adultery and theft. But forgiveness wasn't the same as reconciliation, and reconciliation required trust. I might forgive you someday, Jessica, but I'll never trust you again. And without trust, we're just two people who used to know each other. She nodded, accepting the finality in my voice. I guess this is goodbye then. I guess it is. She stood up slowly, like she was carrying a great weight. At the door, she turned back one last time. For what it's worth, Ben, you're a better man than I deserved. Yeah, I said. I was. After she left, I sat in my office for a long time, listening to the silence. 20 years of marriage, reduced to a 10-minute conversation in a cluttered garage office. It should have felt more significant, more dramatic. Instead, it just felt finished. My phone buzzed with a text from Marina West. Heard Jessica signed the papers. Congratulations on your victory. I typed back, there are no winners here. Maybe not, but some losses are more satisfying than others. I deleted her number and blocked it. Marina had gotten her revenge, but I was done being her weapon. The next morning, I drove to the courthouse for the final hearing. Dave Morrison met me on the steps, looking pleased with himself. This is going to be quick and clean, Ben. Jessica's not even going to be here. She waived her right to appear. Good. The hearing took less than 10 minutes. The judge, a tired-looking woman in her 60s, reviewed the settlement agreement and asked if I understood the terms. I said I did. She signed the papers, banged her gavel, and declared my marriage officially over. Congratulations, Mr. Harris. You're a free man. Free. I walked out of the courthouse and stood on the steps, breathing the crisp October air. 20 years of marriage ended with a gavel bang and a stack of papers. My phone rang. Unknown number. Ben, this is Ethan Boyd. I almost hung up, but curiosity got the better of me. What do you want? I wanted to apologize for everything. I know what I did was wrong, and I'm sorry you got hurt. You're sorry I got hurt, or you're sorry you got caught? Both, I guess. Look, I know you probably hate me, but I want you to know that I never meant for it to go this far. How far did you mean for it to go? Silence. Then, I don't know. I wasn't thinking clearly. You were thinking clearly enough to help Jessica steal $30,000 from our joint accounts. I didn't know about that until after everything blew up. Jessica told me the money was hers. And you believed her. I wanted to believe her. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. You know what the funny thing is, Ethan? You got exactly what you wanted. You got Jessica. She's all yours now. Broke, unemployed, and homeless. But all yours. Actually, we're not together anymore. Really? What happened to true love? It's complicated. It always is. Let me guess. Jessica wasn't as much fun when she needed you to support her instead of just sleeping with her. Look, I called to apologize, not to get into... You called because you're scared. You're scared that everyone in town knows what kind of man you are, and you're hoping that if you apologize to me, somehow your reputation will recover. That's not... It is exactly that. You're a coward, Ethan. You were a coward when you snuck around with my wife, and you're a coward now. I hung up and turned off my phone. The afternoon sun was warm on my face, and for the first time in weeks, I felt something that might have been peace. I drove back to my garage, to the work that had sustained me through everything. There was a 2015 Ford Explorer waiting for a transmission rebuild, and Mrs. Patterson had called about a rattling noise in her Buick. Normal problems with normal solutions. The kind of work that made sense in a world that often didn't. I rolled up my sleeves and got back to what I did best, fixing things that were broken. Some things anyway.